I work at the 24-hour pharmacy of this suburban mall for almost 2 years. It is a dead place after 10. Only parents appear with feverish babies or old men behind sleeping medicine. I live alone in a simple apartment for a few blocks from here, and this job is what pays the bills. On an April night, the rain came heavy, beating the windows, the empty parking lot shining in crooked reflexes in the puddles. I was behind the counter, stirring the shelves of facial cream. The smell of alcohol and plastic stuck to the air. Then he entered. Tall, thin, tailored gray suit, too impeccable for such a place. The black umbrella dripped on the floor, and his shoes spun, as if the rain dare not touch them. He asked for an Advil, soft voice, tight smile, but his eyes, they seemed to cross me, as if they already knew something I didn't know. As I took the change, he asked if I was alone. Then I wanted to know when I left. I lived closely. The words were slow, but sharp, and my mouth was dry, a taste of iron rising through the throat. I answered anything short, trying not to look at him. When it left, the air looked lighter, but my chest was still weighed. 3 days later, he returned. This time, it brought her a black box in such a tight bun that she stretched her skin, dark suit, heels that snapped in the linoleum like nails beating on wood. He whispered something to her, pointing to me, and she came straight, thin smile, almost sharp. He said they had a beak for me, private VIP events, a lot of money, a short time. Her voice was melliflua, but her eyes were fixed, hard, as if weighed me all over. I refused, stammered that it didn't give, and they just smiled, a smile that didn't reach the whole face. They came out to the black SUV parked outside, dark glass swallowing the light. I stared at until they disappeared, my hands shaking at the counter. After that, it started. The next morning, leaving at 6, I saw the SUV across the street, headlights, turned to my building. There was no one inside, so where I could see. I climbed to the ape's soft legs, and from the window he was still there, a black spot on Gray Street. I closed the curtain, but the tinnitus on my head didn't stop. In the following days, he appeared everywhere, in the corner of the house, in the market, in the mall parking lot. Always empty, always without a sign. Once I passed near, my heart in my throat, and I swear I felt a sweet smell coming out of it, like rotten perfume. I bought new lock, chain, a cheap camera for mobile. At work, any noise on the door made me crash. Tight chest, waiting for the gray suit or black bun to appear. Carla, the supervisor, said I looked like a unleashed wire, but I told nothing. How would you explain? One night, almost midnight, the Desert Mall, I heard a drag at the bottom of the store. Thin, slow, like a cloth sliding on the floor. I got up, my eyes sweeping the shelves, and saw a long, slender shadow, folding the corridor of the controlled medicines. He was not a client. It was him. You shouldn't be alone here. The voice came low, almost a whisper, cutting the silence. He came out of the shadows, hands in his pockets, the suit swallowing the weak light. She came back, the bun shining like onyx, the empty smile stuck to her face. "You're special, Emily," he said, my name coming out of his mouth, and my body froze. I tried to speak, but the voice didn't come out. I pressed the emergency button under the counter, trembling fingers, praying to work. "No need to be afraid." He took a step, the shoe echoing. "You'll understand." Sirens cut the air, weak but growing up. The two looked at each other, a quick wrinkle breaking the smooth faces, and disappeared to the shelves. When the security guards arrived, there was no one. I only shrink, my heart beating in the ears. I told what I gave, but I saw in their eyes that they didn't believe it right. They took me home, and the SUV never appeared. I asked for afternoon shift the following week, but still look at the shadows. I still feel that sweet smell sometimes, stuck in the back of my throat. In my apartment, I found a vial of Advil in the sink the other day. I don't remember buying. I lock everything at night, knife under the pillow, but I know it's not over. It doesn't end. I work as a night watchman in Walmart's parking lot here in the city, a place so still that sometimes I feel a useless ornament. After the store closes at 10, it's just me, the silence and the cold that crosses the coat. I like that, the emptiness, until a cold October night changed everything. It was wrapped in a skipped blanket in the guardhouse, the squeaking trailer heater before flipping through, when I saw a figure near an all-rusty car, no license plate. He was a hooded man, his curved shoulders, looking around as if the world would collapse behind him. The hood hid his face, but you could see the vapor of his breathing coming out too fast, almost feverish. I thought it was just another idiot locked out of the car. It happens sometimes. But something in it gave me a knot in my stomach. When he came to the guardhouse, his voice trembled as he said he had lost the keys, and his hands, dirty with dirt, did not stop quiet. He didn't look at me, just to the floor, and his smell, a mixture of rancid sweat and something metallic, got stuck in the air. I said I was going to check the cameras before helping, more instinct than as a rule. On the blurred screen, I saw another figure, crouching behind the garbage bucket, the body moving in short spasms, as if trying to disappear into the shadow. My chest squeezed, and I knew it was not just a locked car. I took the radio with my fingers and said I was going to call the police. The guy got white, stammered he didn't need, that he could find a way. Before I opened my mouth again, he ran to the bucket, shouted something low and hoarse to the other, and the two evaporated in the darkness. The car was there, dropped, the hood still hot when I played. I stared at him, my heart punching his ribs, the silence now looking alive, swallowing me. I came back to the trailer, the cold burning my throat, and turned on the police. They came, moved in the car, and told me it was stolen, linked to some robberies out there. I didn't feel relief, just a greater weight, as if I had bumped into something I shouldn't. In the next shift, as I walked through the parking lot, I heard a sound in the gravel. Not steps, but a slow drag, as if something heavy dragged behind me. I turned the flashlight, the beam shaking in my hand, but there was nothing, just the dark and the echo of that sound. I came back to the trailer trying to convince myself that it was a cat or the wind, but every night after that the sound came back, closer, clearer, sometimes stopping right on my neck before disappearing. I asked the police to surround me once, and of course nothing happened. They laughed, they said I needed to sleep, but I knew it wasn't tired. It was real and I was surrounding me. I decided to face it. One night, I parked my car behind the building, out of sight, and stood inside in the dark, waiting. The drag came, louder, the floor vibrating lightly under the tires. My blood froze when I realized I came straight to me, as if I knew where I was. Then he stopped, and the silence fell like a punch. Something hit the glass, a dry, heavy thud, and I shouted, lighting the flashlight. There was no one, but a dark spot was on the glass, not by hand, but something crooked, with two long fingers, blurred as wet paint. I got out of the car, the soft legs, the air smelling of rust and rot. The trailer lights flashed when I came back, and I swear I saw a reflection in the window, not mine, but something that moved slowly behind me. After that, it was like I carried a pair of eyes on my back. Where I was going, trailer, parking, even my house on Time Dash, I felt it following me, the thick air, the silence tinning in my ears. I stopped eating properly, my fingers scratching nervously, my eyes burning from looking at cameras and finding nothing. Until one night, without warning, the weight disappeared. The drag stopped, the air was clean, and the parking lot was just an empty place. But I didn't come back, still according to the sound of that drag on my head, and sometimes, in the dark of my room, I see that stain in the corner of my eye, crooked, blurred fingers, waiting for me to look back. I don't look anymore. I work on the dawn shift in a vagabond motel glued to a highway that never sleeps. It's not one of those places you see on road movie, Here the floor is always sticky. The neon of the license plate flashes crooked, and the air stinks the old cigarette mixed with a disinfectant that doesn't deceive anyone. Truckers with their back eyes, travelers who look lost to themselves, and couples who enter their heads down, as if they wanted to erase their own shadows. That night the silence weighed more than the usual, only cut by the snoring of the engines outside, until a guy appeared in the lobby. Fallen shoulders, almost sunk in a grimy coat. He seemed to want to hide, but his eyes, man, those eyes stick to me like I was a prey. My hands jammed on the spot, and I pretended to move the papers as he asked for a room. His voice out, something about 1 hour, but he didn't go up. He surrounded his lobby, dragging his feet, his eyes piercing me as I tried not to lift his head. Then she appeared out of nowhere, hair stuck in a loose ponytail, gray blouse that seemed to scream, "Don't look at me," and a smile that didn't climb the eyes. A tested, crooked smile that gave me a cold in my belly. He came straight to the counter and said he was my friend, who knew I was terrified with the guy. Friend? I had never seen that woman in my life. She said quietly, almost in a whisper, said he was photographing me with his cell phone while I typed. My throat dried up. I had not seen any of that, but now it seemed that he was right behind me, the weight of that look nailed to my back of my neck. She insisted for me to go with her, to a safe place, pointing out for the back of the back, that rusty mold, covered door that no one wears without cameras, just a pitch on the other side. My chest squeezed, and I locked it. It was not concern in her voice. It was something else, something viscous that made my skin tingling like I had already fallen into a trap. I tried to disguise as she pulled me for that dark way out. She was talking nonstop. Everything will be fine. I take you to a safe place. But each word seemed to push me more to a corner. Near the door, my body shouted. I couldn't think right, I just knew I needed to get out of there. I took one step back, then another, and when she saw that I wasn't going anymore, her face changed. It was no longer that, "I'm helping you" air, it was cold, hard, as if I had broken a plan. I ran to the counter, the soft legs, and locked the office, my hands shaking so much that the key almost fell twice before turning. Inside, I grabbed the cell phone and dialed to the police, but before someone answered, I looked at the cameras. And then it got worse. They had arrived together in the same car. They parked out of the reach of external lenses, but in the lobby they were aligned, as if they already knew every step. The worst thing was to see him whispering to her while pointing to me. He knew my name. The two knew. I hadn't said my name to anyone that night, but they knew. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. He walked around the lobby. The steps dragged, as if waiting for a signal. She leaned against the counter, pretending to move her cell phone, but I saw that it was just to watch me, the fingers too stuck for those who were typing. They didn't fight, they didn't look crooked. They looked like a machine, each in their place. My stomach rapped. What did they want with me? Why do I just... My head was spinning with 1,000 stupid ideas, but none fit. Then I heard steps outside the office, slow, heavy, like someone who knows you have nowhere to go. I held the air, looking for something to defend myself. Nothing. A padding chair, a crumpled papers, a mug with cold coffee. The footsteps stopped in front of the door, and my chest looked like it was going to give in. Then came a light, almost lazy beat, like someone asking for sugar. But it wasn't. It was a warning. That beat made me swallow a scream. If I opened my mouth, they would know that I was there, crumbling. I was hard, the air coming out, while listening to something being dragged outside. One of the lobby chairs, the torn upholstery brushing the floor. It was as if they had all the time in the world. My cell phone was still in hand, but I didn't know if I had called the police or if I had unintentionally turned off. My hands trembled so much that the screen seemed to blur. I looked at cameras again, and the lobby was empty. Empty. But I knew they were there, on the other side of the door, surrounding me as cockroaches you don't see until lighting the light. My head fired, they knew my name, knew where I worked, and now they were playing with me. I thought of my mother, my dog, how no one would find me until the shift is over. I couldn't stop stopping anymore. My head shouted 1,000 things. The police coming, they breaking the door, me turning nothing. But staying there was worse. If they had a key, a tool, anything, I was screwed. I took the phone again, my hands slipping with sweat, and called the police. A recording, busy lines, try again. My God, I heard a noise in the room corridor, a metallic clang, as if someone moved in a lock or dragging something heavy. My whole body got hard, and I knew I had to decide. To stay was to surrender. Leaving the lobby was to throw me in their hands. I looked at the cameras, praying for an answer, but only empty corridors, locked doors, the whole motel looking dead except for me and those two. He arrives. If I was going to leave alive, it had to be now. I took the chair and leaned against the doorknob, hoping to hold the door for a few minutes. I rolled the office behind something to defend myself. I found an old scissors, the half-crooked blade, which we used to open boxes. I stuck it in my back pocket and looked at the small window, the one that gave it to the filthy alley of the back. It was a risk, but better than facing them. Before opening, I heard whispers in the hallway low, tangled, but I took pieces. She knows, can't go out. And something about the name, my name. My heart looked like a drum, and I didn't know if I was crazy or if they had followed me for weeks. The knock on the door returned, stronger, as if they were tired of waiting. I opened the window slowly, the latch, and I jumped to the pitch. My feet hit the alley floor, and I almost fell into a bunch of trash. There was no one there, at least not that I saw. But it wasn't safe. I ran, stumbling into wet boxes and rotten boards, the chest burning, the air coming out in gatches. I arrived on the main street and saw a police car passing. I screamed until my voice tears, shaking my arms like a crazy man, and they stopped. I got in the car without breath, spitting pieces of history as I tried not to faint. They said they were going to the motel on the spot, but something at the bottom of my head said it wasn't going to advance anything. And it was no use. When we arrived, the motel was the same. The chair on the door, the scissors on the floor I left, but they were gone. Nothing broken, nothing out of place. The cameras only showed empty corridors, as if I had imagined everything. Police said they were going to make a bulletin, but you could see that they didn't believe it right. I don't know who these two were, nor how they knew so much about me. Sometimes, according to a weight in my chest, as if someone had looked at me through the window, even though it is miles from that place. I never went back to the motel, but there are nights that I hear slow steps in the hallway of my building, and I don't know if it's my head or if they still so there, waiting.